Okay, here we go. Hi, I'm Ben Baker. I'm an Australian portrait photographer based in New York City, and I get sent around the country and the world to photograph the lives of prominent Americans and worldwide figures that we all know so well. My job is to bring back insights and little slices of life that we are usually not invited into. I chose a career in photography, most importantly for the life it can give you. The life of a traveling photographer is not always glamorous or easy. My choice to live and work in New York City was really rather by accident. A friend of a friend managed to get me into an interview with the Leibowitz studio. She was in the middle of a large project, Vanity Fair, and was looking for extra people to help her on projects, and somehow we got along. And I was offered a job at Annie's studio, and obviously took that. For what I do, the people I photograph in New York City, it has to be here. As a photographer, I spend a lot of time photographing people of power, documenting the lives of CEOs, of presidents, of senators, of billionaires. In those situations, there's a lot of pressure on me from their people. These are also people who have a great deal of self-interest, their own perception of how they are perceived by the rest of the world. And they're very used to having their own way and controlling every situation that they're in. So for them to relinquish power or control for even a few minutes to a person they have only just met that may portray them in a magazine and a newspaper across the globe is usually a game which I quite enjoy. It's incredibly stressful. It's usually very brief. It's usually, well, I like to call it a dance. There's a few steps to the dance. I know the steps to the dance going in. They usually don't. Quite often I get frustrated because I just want to get to step 8. But however, I have to go through all the steps to find a point where they're comfortable, their PR team is comfortable, but at the end of the day, I and the magazine are getting the images that we want. Most difficult parts of my photographic process is to be able to have respect from the people who I photograph and have them willing to give more than they would normally give in a portrait situation. I do that in a few different ways. I've always got to think about where they're coming from, put myself in their shoes, try to create a situation where they understand there's something in it for them. Typically, I'll always be in a suit and tie if I'm photographing a person who I need to show respect to. So will the crew. The way the crew operates, incredibly professional and respectful, super fast. Our portrait of President Obama for the cover of Fortune magazine, we were given about 15 minutes, but you never know exactly how long it's going to go, but that was our given time. We did a lot of research on images that we thought President Obama could fit into. We looked into some of the Rat Pack images and felt that the president would be cool enough to be able to walk in a lot of those images, not knowing what we were going to get. I've gone to Omaha, Nebraska to spend time with Warren Buffett for a number of covers of magazines. And usually a day with Warren Buffett's unlike any other. He's completely unguarded in the car with me. A day with Warren Buffett involves going to lunch at his favorite diner, Piccolo Pete's. When we recently had lunch with Warren Buffett there, I proposed the portrait of Warren with his favorite milkshake dessert. And Warren Buffett said, on the condition that I pay for the dessert, he'll sit for the picture. In the case of gaining Mr. Trump's trust very quickly, we made sure we brought along a portfolio, which is a very common thing we do. That portfolio was filled with images of potential colleagues he has in business, people he respects and he would find comfortable being placed amongst. As a magazine portrait photographer, I try very hard not to get caught up in equipment or the technique or the process. I think we're all storytellers. Whatever process is needed to tell the story effectively is what we'll go with. If it's natural light one day or if it's strobe for another. Typically we travel with mostly strobe equipment simply because I can control the light. I know when I'm going to get it, it's consistent. But generally I never want someone to look at a photograph or a magazine spread and worry about the light. I want them to look at the person and think about the moment that that portrait or that story that picture is telling them. A big part of work is relationships with many different people. The relationships I have with magazine editors, with my subjects, with their PR handlers, and very importantly with an agent is a really important part of the step once a photographer is so busy that they can't go to certain meetings with magazines. It also takes the pressure of a photographer not to have to be involved with talking about the money side of the business. When putting together a portfolio, the process of trying to find the right balance of images for the right magazine is essential. Some of my portfolios are set up for maybe a Vanity Fair type project, a lush environmental portrait, and then I may put together a different portfolio for someone like Time magazine, who typically runs very simple portraits on a white background, on a black background. You need to show the editor what you do best, but you've also got to show it within the context of how their magazine is currently printed. One of the ongoing projects that I've been working on for many years is a series of portraits of people who live on an island, the Bolivian and Peruvian border. And one of the joys that I get is I get to escape the halls of the executive suites in New York City. I get to go to an island where there really is nothing but these really incredible people who I, over a number of years, go back and document their lives. And there is also something very special about returning to a village where photographs are very rare and a portrait of somebody is almost non-existent. So to return with a 16:20 print to give to a mother is an incredible moment that I treasure. Yeah, this picture was an important. This chap who I photographed a few times, he's actually disabled. And this man, he lives in a mountain village. He's not in a wheelchair. Obviously, you couldn't use a wheelchair in this mountain village, but he would drag himself from house to house and from spot to spot. And he always had a smile like that.